He was not celebrated in newspapers. His name did not appear in giant headlines. Hollywood barely remembered him, but his work mattered. Because wars are not won only by generals, they are won by engineers, inventors, designers, mechanics, problem solvers. And behind the victory over fascism stood countless forgotten black minds whose contributions changed history forever. This is the story of David Baker, the black engineer who helped build the machines that beat Hitler.
David Baker was born into a world built to limit him. In early 20th century America, opportunities for black children were painfully small. Segregation poisoned nearly every part of life. Black students often attended underfunded schools. Libraries were separated. Factories refused black workers. Universities shut their doors to black talent. Many white Americans believed engineering was a profession reserved for white men alone. But David Baker possessed something powerful: curiosity. From a young age, he wanted to understand how things worked. Machines fascinated him: engines, metal parts, electrical systems, industrial tools. While others saw cold steel and gears, he saw possibility. He studied tirelessly. Books became weapons against ignorance. And despite the barriers placed before him, he pushed forward with determination that refused to die. Because for many black Americans of that era, education was more than personal success. It was resistance. Every diploma challenged racism. Every achievement shattered stereotypes. Every black professional proved the lies of white supremacy wrong. David Baker understood that, and he refused to let America decide the limits of his future. As Baker entered adulthood, the world itself was changing. Factories expanded, cities modernized. Technology advanced rapidly. Engineering became one of the most important professions of the modern age. But it remained deeply segregated. Black engineers faced humiliation everywhere. Some companies refused to hire them. Others paid them less. Many forced them into lower positions, despite superior qualifications. White co-workers often doubted their intelligence before they even spoke. And yet black engineers continued to rise. David Baker became part of that new generation. A generation determined to prove that black excellence belonged in laboratories, factories, and industrial design rooms, just as much as anywhere else. His talent for technical problem solving quickly became impossible to ignore. He understood machinery, not only as tools, but as systems that could be improved, strengthened, perfected. As war clouds gathered over Europe in the 1930s, those skills suddenly became critical, because the modern world was preparing for total war. Across the Atlantic Ocean, Adolf Hitler transformed Germany into a military empire. Nazi factories worked day and night. Tanks rolled from assembly lines. Aircraft filled the skies. Weapons factories expanded endlessly. The Nazis understood something terrifying. Modern wars would not be won only with soldiers. They would be won with industrial power. The side capable of building more machines, more engines, more transportation systems, more weapons, would dominate the battlefield. America realized it had to respond. Factories across the country exploded into action. Industrial cities roared with energy. Shipyards expanded. Automobile factories shifted into military production. The nation needed engineers desperately. And despite racism, America could no longer afford to ignore black talent completely. David Baker stepped into that world at the exact moment history demanded minds like his. The Second World War became a battle of production. Victory depended on engineering. Aircraft needed stronger engines. Military vehicles needed reliable systems. Factories needed efficient manufacturing methods. Every improvement could save lives. Every delay could cost thousands of soldiers. David Baker worked in this intense industrial environment where pressure never stopped. Massive machines thundered across factory floors. Sparks flew through the air. Steel shook beneath endless production. The work was exhausting, but it was also historic. Black engineers like Baker contributed to the systems and machinery that allowed America and its allies to outproduce Nazi Germany. They helped keep military supply chains alive. They improved industrial efficiency. They strengthened the enormous mechanical backbone of the Allied war efforts. And they did it while still facing segregation at home. Imagine the contradiction: Black Americans helping save democracy overseas, while denied full equality in their own country. Yet they continued, because defeating fascism mattered. Because Hitler's ideology of racial supremacy represented a threat to humanity itself. And Black Americans understood racial hatred better than most. For Black Americans, World War II became known as the double victory struggle. Victory against fascism abroad, victory against racism at home. Black soldiers fought in segregated units. Black workers labored in segregated factories. Black engineers contributed brilliant ideas, while often being denied recognition. David Baker lived within this contradiction every day. His mind helped fuel the machinery of democracy, even while democracy remained incomplete for people who looked like him. Still, Black engineers refused to stop building. They knew their success carried enormous meaning. Every successful Black scientist or engineer challenged racist myths. Every technical achievement weakened the foundations of white supremacy. David Baker represented a generation of hidden pioneers whose intelligence helped reshape America's future, even when history refused to put their names in lights. During the war, thousands of Black workers entered industries previously closed to them: shipbuilding, aircraft manufacturing, mechanical engineering, electrical systems. For many white Americans, it was the first time they witnessed Black professionals operating at the highest technical levels, and the results shattered racist assumptions. Black engineers solved complex industrial problems. Black machinists maintained critical equipment. Black technicians kept wartime production alive. David Baker stood among these invisible geniuses, men and women whose contributions remained buried beneath larger political narratives. Yet without them, the Allied war machine would have been weaker, because victory in World War II depended not only on bullets and bombs, but on the minds capable of building them. Even while helping defeat Hitler, Black engineers faced discrimination daily. Some were excluded from meetings, others were denied promotions. White supervisors sometimes took credit for Black innovation. In certain factories, Black employees were forced to use separate bathrooms and cafeterias. The hypocrisy was staggering. America condemned Nazi racism abroad, while segregation continued at home. But Black engineers persisted anyway, not because the system was fair, but because they understood something important. Progress often begins with people forced to succeed despite injustice. David Baker and others like him became symbols of intellectual resistance. Their very existence in engineering spaces challenged racist beliefs. And slowly, America began changing, not because prejudice disappeared, but because Black excellence became impossible to deny. When Nazi Germany finally collapsed, the world celebrated victory. Hitler's empire lay in ruins. The concentration camps were liberated. The war that consumed millions had finally ended. But many of the people who helped make that victory possible remained unknown. Among them were Black engineers like David Baker, men who designed, repaired, improved, and strengthened the industrial systems behind Allied success. Their work rarely appeared in dramatic war movies, yet without engineers, no tanks move, no planes fly, no factories operate, no army survives. David Baker belonged to the generation that proved Black minds could shape the modern technological world at the highest level, and that truth could no longer be erased. Today, the stories of Black engineers from World War II are finally receiving the recognition they deserve. They were pioneers, trailblazers, problem solvers who challenged both technological limits and racial barriers simultaneously. David Baker represents all those forgotten Black innovators whose contributions helped shape modern history. His story reminds us that the fight against tyranny was not won only on battlefields. It was won inside laboratories, factories, workshops, design rooms. It was won by people whose names history almost forgot. And perhaps that is the most powerful lesson of all. Because greatness does not always stand in front of cameras. Sometimes greatness works quietly behind the scenes, building the future with determination, intelligence, and courage. David Baker helped build the machines that defeated one of history's darkest regimes, not with speeches, not with fame, but with skill, with discipline, with a brilliant mind that refused to be limited by racism. And through that work, he became part of something larger than himself. A generation of black pioneers who proved that intellect has no color, innovation has no race, and the power to change history can come from those the world least expects.